In a previous movie, we were exploring the different settings for layers, and there was a setting there called Template. Let's take a look at what that means here inside of Illustrator. I'm using a file from the example files from Chapter 9 called Template Layers, and I'm going to go ahead to the Layers panel and just choose to open that up here so we can take a look at it. On this particular layer, you'll notice that I have an image. This image is embedded, and I've brought it now into Illustrator. And I might want to use this as a base for me to create a design. I don't want to trace it using the live trace feature inside of Illustrator, which we'll talk about later on in this particular title. However, for now, I might want to use my pen tool or some other drawing tools to kind of draw my own shapes, but base it somewhat on this to map it more towards a more traditional way of drawing. You know, there are some designers who would take a piece of artwork and put a piece of tracing paper on top of it and maybe put that over a light box, and they can use that as a base for their drawings. Well, I want to be able to actually turn this into that same kind of metaphor where I want to be able to use this as a base for a particular design, but I want to just draw completely on top of it. So what I can do is I can create what's called a template layer. I'm going to take layer 1 right here, which is where that image resides on. I'm going to double click on layer 1 to bring up the layer options dialog box. I'll click on this option here called template. When I do so, it automatically locks the layer. It sets it to be a non-printing layer, and it sets the dim images to 50% right here. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and you'll see that right now the image itself is dim. It's locked. In fact, that entire layer is locked. And what I'll do now is I'll create a brand new layer to use for drawing. I can now use the pencil tool, for example, to maybe trace over certain parts of this if I wanted to create something like that as I kind of work. Again, it's up to me to decide how I want to use this template layer, but in this way, I'm basically locking down the image and setting it to a lighter opacity so that I can now draw on top of it without that image getting in the way. I, in fact, sometimes find that 50% opacity setting is sometimes too strong. So I'll go to that particular template layer, double-click on it, and set the dim images to around 30%. And that way, I have an easier way of drawing on top of that.